Why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, hello. I am the mother of the science mom. So that makes me like the queen mother. I'm the mom of CallaghansQuestions.
The mom of Science Mom. Fantastic. So today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about parenting and empathy and how to make the world a little bit of a better place. So what would you say is your parenting style?
I think it has obviously evolved over the years. And I think when you guys were little, I was probably the world's worst micromanager. And now I'm kind of just sitting back and trying to enjoy the show a little bit. So it's kind of one of those, I think that there was no, there was lots of humor.
Yeah.
There was definitely no spanking.
No, don't hit children. Anyone who's like, I got hit growing up and I turned out fine. No, you turned into an adult who thinks it's acceptable to hit children. You're not okay.
Yeah. And a part of that was that there was no topic that was off limits for discussion, right? So kids, even really young kids, are capable of kind of managing their feelings better if they have an opportunity to talk about what it is that's eating them, that's, pushing the parent to a point that they're ready to just throttle them,
Yeah.
So...
and that honestly...
Sorry, go ahead. Lots of talk. We talked a lot.
And yeah, that honestly I think was one of the best aspects of growing up with you, because I've obviously turned into somebody now who is just voraciously curious, and I think a large part of that was that in our formative years we could come talk to you about anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think your nature was such that you were just a curious kid, though, too. I mean, when you were a very little child, your first words were basically, what's that? Who's that? Why is that? Everything was, if we were in the grocery store, it didn't matter where we were, you wanted to know, you wanted to have a contextual understanding of the world around you, which was often impossible to answer, but it was, and exhausting, but it was amusing.
Yeah.
Certainly, and that hasn't changed. That's just who you are.
Yeah, CallaghansQuestions since day one. But something that I think was really cool, and something that, if there are any parents listening, I think more people should aspire to in parenting, is there was no culture of shame in our house. There was no topic that was going to be taboo or get us in trouble or be off limits. And you did a really good job of not making anything awkward or uncomfortable. And that's something that definitely throughout my life has been a major advantage, and has been something I've noticed not all of my same age peers have, like particularly around puberty and sort of the birds and the bees talk. That was something that, we could ask you anything, and that was so important for developing healthy boundaries and expectations and an understanding of how our bodies worked and what sort of treatment was and wasn't okay. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Oh, well, I'm my pleasure.
Yes. Well done.
I think the thing was, as a parent, for me personally, I knew that me not supplying the information to you was not going to prevent you from finding the information. So I would much rather have been the source of it, and trusting that, the guidance that I've given to you was altruistic and in your best interest and honest, because I think when kids... knowledge is power, and when you are armed with all of the facts, you're able to sort of make decisions for yourself that are typically better decisions because you have all of the knowledge that you need to do it.
100%. And I think especially now, with kids today being the most technologically enabled generation ever, if parents don't provide good information or don't provide an ability to seek out good information in a safe and age-appropriate way, they're going to find it, and they're probably going to find the worst, most extreme version of it, which is absolutely not necessarily safe.
Well, and the thing, or maybe they're going to find the information that you would have supplied to them anyways, but it's a missed opportunity to sort of have an open bonding experience with your child, that they know, for the step beyond that the conversation doesn't have to end there, that if things come up in the future, and they do, that they can come back and say,
follow-up
this
question.
is what we're dealing with now. I have a follow-up. Yeah. And I think that's something that will go on throughout our lifespans,
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think one of the really cool things now, I've talked about this before, but it's really cool now that we get to be friends now. I'll always need you and always come to you for advice and stuff like that. But your parenting, your hardcore parenting, is more or less done, because I'm at the stage now where I'm a relatively functional adult.
Oh, 100%. And I the friendship part, that's the payoff. The feeling like you've given birth to your best friend.
Yeah.
truly, it's like you created this life, and then that life just becomes your ally forever and for always, which is amazing. I think the difference is now that when I have questions about things, or if there are questions about things, it's more likely me coming to you to say, I've got this weird rash.
Hey.
I don't know where it came from.
I know you're busy answering questions on the TikTok, but do you think you could spare a minute for your mother?
You got to get back to the Queen Mother. She's got a rash.
Yeah, that's quite funny. And that's something that not everyone I know has. Like, a lot of people have developed to this point where they don't really talk to their parents, or if they do, it's about sort of like kind of an awkward, oh yeah, I do it. I talk to them because I feel obligated, or I need money, or not that there's anything wrong with needing money and asking for support, but I think it upsets me that not everyone has the relationship that we have, because it is so cool. I don't think there's anyone I laugh harder with, and often about nothing.
Yes, ditto. And I know that it's not really a commonplace thing, and it makes me a bit sad. I mean, I have friends that they're genuinely gobsmacked that you text me every morning. We FaceTime almost daily, and pretty much you're the last person I say goodnight to every night.
Yeah,
they just don't have the luxury of that relationship, and I mean, I can't imagine not having that.
Yeah, it honestly would freak me out if I didn't hear from you at least once in a day. I'd be like, okay, well, she's in a car crash, she's in a coma, something is gone. And I think we're similar in that regard, where I'm like, oh my God, she hasn't texted me yet. What's going on?
Do you think we have an unhealthy attachment?
Do you think it's codependency?
I don't think it's toxic exactly, except over the holidays, maybe when there's a little too much glog involved.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. I think, honestly, you and I just don't like most people.
Yeah, I think that's good.
And we like each other a lot.
Is there people listening to this conversation? Because, really, I'm not down for that.
Oh, yeah. Did I not tell you this is going on the podcast?
I thought we were just talking. Jeez.
For those of you who are unaware, she knows it's going on the podcast. That is a joke. I'm not recording anyone without their explicit consent. Don't do things to people without their consent. Okay.
That's right.
Next question. What has been the most challenging aspect of parenting for you? Either in general or with me as a specific example. We'll not bring my siblings into this because they don't know what's going on. That wouldn't be fair.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the answer would be the same regardless, because, obviously your sibling is your siblings are very different from you, but I think accepting that you get the kid that you get and not the kid that you imagined. Yeah. That's a very challenging part of parenting, especially when you have a child that is exceptional in many ways, and very curious about the world and has very clear ideas about their own sense of justice. And, not that I'm not in agreement with pretty much everything that you think and believe. I think it's wonderful, but certainly it was a lot more than I bargained for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, accepting that the child that you get that's how they come.
Yeah.
Everything, their gender preference, all of that. That's all built in, and it's delivered to you, and it's up to you how you react to it, because you're not going to change it, and you shouldn't want to change it.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can either build love or shame in a person.
Yeah, exactly. So kids can bloom or they can wilt, and it's kind of up to that relationship to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I think also watching your kids struggle and not being able to fix it,
Yeah.
I know that your life is great, but I mean, you've had your struggles. You had a lot going on going through university. You were working a lot of jobs and going to school full time and doing a double degree, and we both know that you've had some physical fallout as a result of that.
I've
breaking your eyeball bone, and
I've fractured my skull a couple of times from just passing out from exhaustion and or just like weird circumstantial injuries.
Yes, exactly. So seeing that as a parent and sort of going, I know my kid is exhausted and she's just overworking herself, but I can't, I can ask her to slow down, but ultimately it's her choice and it's her decision, and she's the master of her own, demise, I guess.
The master of her own demise.
That's tough to watch, right? You just kind of sit back and go, well, I'm here with the first aid kit and a lot of polysporin and Band-Aids, and hopefully I can fix it when she crashes and burns.
That's going to be, if I ever write a memoir, that's going to be the title. master of my own demise. Yeah, I think I obviously work with a lot of teens, and I think the most distressing thing for me are the kids I get who I just think are so phenomenal. I mean, obviously I love all of them so much, and I think they're all such incredible young people, and they fill me with so much hope for the future, but I have ones that are transgender or not straight or whatever, and the fact that their parents find that shameful or don't accept it or whatever fills me with such distress. And I think it's important to recognize that if you are not 100% prepared to get whatever kid is coming your way, be they autistic or obsessive compulsive or homosexual or transgender or whatever, if you're not 100% prepared for that reality, you probably should not have kids.
No, absolutely. Or I mean, if you're an artist or a singer or a performer and you have a child who wants to be an accountant, you know, I mean, that could maybe by some be perceived as being incredibly disappointing. But I agree with you. It's such a lost opportunity for one of the most wonderful, healthy relationships you'll ever have in the lifespan with your child as an adult, as a little person, to just accept who they are. Because, you know, if you can do that for them, they will do that for you.
Yeah.
And,
One thing that has been really phenomenal, and one thing that I've always felt deeply, is your love has always been obviously unconditional. And obviously when I went through like puberty and all of that, I think that was a relatively contentious time, as it is, I think, for anyone. It's a lot to go through with your brain chemistry changing and everything. But it's always been of great comfort to know that your love is absolutely unconditional and that there's nothing you wouldn't do for me or help me with or that I couldn't talk to you about. And so thank you again.
Well, no, absolutely. And it's not a limited time offer. That's pretty much.
Yeah, it is a long-term, high investment commitment.
Yeah, and I think that is the other challenge of parenting. It's sort of the one job, as my friend who opted not to have children said to me, and it really resonated. She said, you know, I chose not to have children because it's the one job I could never quit. And she's, you know, commitment is obviously a thing for her, but it's very true. It's the job you don't get to quit.
Yeah, for sure. What has been the most rewarding part of parenting?
Oh, gosh, so many things. I mean, I think for me, one of the biggest things was, you know, when you have little kids at home, you see the world through their eyes and everything seems new again. And everything from taking a trip somewhere or going to the beach and discovering the ocean again, or just, you know, springtime, all of that. Everything feels new and it's exciting again. So there's that. And then the creativity, I think, that you guys had as kids was kind of an amazing thing. You would, you know, put on shows and you would always be doing stuff, painting stuff, building stuff. So that was fantastic. And I think for myself personally, probably, you know, I think I was relatively comfortable with myself until I had kids, but I don't think I really loved myself per se. No, but I think I learned to love myself through my kids because you guys would look to me with such love that felt unconditional, that it made me kind of reflect on who I am as a human being to deserve that, you know? So I kind of grew to love myself at the same time that I loved you guys, you know, so wholeheartedly, and that hasn't changed. So, yeah, there's just so many great parts of parenting. I mean, they far outweigh the downside, just all of it. The hysterical stuff that you guys would say that I wish I'd had smartphones when you were little, because I would have recorded so much stuff. I mean, your aunts and uncles still laugh about the stuff you did as a toddler because you were an entertainer. You know, you're an entertainer now and you were an entertainer then. Like, that's just who you are. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. And it's interesting because I kind of have that now with my godchildren. Like, it's, you know, when I go to see them, if I haven't seen them in a while, the reaction I get, like, you know, like Marilyn Monroe has just walked through the door, or, you know, like Santa Claus.
And the funny stuff that they say.
Oh, my God.
Some of the stuff, it's just like, it's priceless because it's so sort of grown up and perceptive, but yet so infantile at the same time. And
yeah. And also, like, so unfiltered and brutally honest.
Yeah, totally.
Which is, yeah. What do you suggest to young people who maybe don't have the greatest relationship with their parents, or adults who don't have the greatest relationship with their parents?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, we all need to have that person, especially when you're a young child or a teenager. You need to have that person that's in your corner that you feel really, truly has your back no matter what and kind of has some understanding of you. I think that support is really, really kind of crucial to emotional well-being.
And brain development.
And brain development, all of it, right? Seeing the world through healthy eyes. And if you can't have that with your own parents, I don't think that precludes you from ever having it. I think you need to find your family. I think I used to say to you when you were in high school, because sometimes you felt like an outsider because you just weren't into a lot of the same things, your friends were, or your
my same age peers. Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to say to you got to find your tribe, right? You have to find that group of people that supports what you're interested in and vice versa, that you understand each other. And you care for each other, so I don't know, it's maybe not the best advice, but I guess just trying to find that sense of family elsewhere in a healthy way.
Yeah. And I think
probably why kids join gangs, so don't do that.
Oh my God. Yeah, find a healthy found family. Yeah. Yeah, I think found family is just as valid and legitimate as blood relatives. Just I think we've really lucked out in that we really genuinely do get along and really like each other. Yeah. But I think if you were like a teacher or a coach or something like that, we'd still have this strength of relationship. Yeah. And, I think for kids who are in situations where they maybe don't feel particularly close to their parents, if it's not a completely dysfunctional environment, maybe ask questions, get to know your parents. And it's not really your job to have to do that. But if you want to try and build a bridge, sometimes it's where empathy, kind of comes in. Like, yeah. To try and understand their experience of the world and their history and everything else. Yeah. And they may find that by you kind of showing interest in them that they soften up a little bit and let you closer. Yeah. And I think not all parents have the tools required. Yeah. And just by virtue of how they were parented, that sort of vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. And for any young people who are listening, it is not your responsibility. You are not responsible for the adults in your life. You're just not. Yeah. But if you want to try and build bridges, you can, and that's great. But if that doesn't work out, that's not a personal failing on your part at all. And it's okay to found family is just as important and loving and accepting as blood relation. Yeah.
A teacher that you trust can go a long way in helping you through tough times. A guidance counselor, a coach, Yeah.
100%. Do you remember Miss Vandenberg?
I do. Yeah. Yes, I do. Your drama teacher, absolutely. She was a big influence in your life and a wonderful person. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
May she rest in power. What is your favorite memory of us? Or one of?
Oh, I have so many of them, but I think one of the things that spring to mind are the shows that you would put on. Summers traveling with your cousins, and we would do the big cousin trip because they were always hysterical. But then the shows that you guys would typically orchestrate the whole thing, and you'd get all the cousins involved, and you'd put on a little, 2-act play for everyone, and it would just be such a riot. So
that was fun.
Some great memories, and also all the traveling we did a lot of traveling together, and that was amazing.
In the before times,
without its challenges, but in the before times when you were allowed to actually get on airplanes and stuff, it was great.
Yeah, for sure. Those were really fun experiences. I think I was just the oldest, but it was definitely really cool getting everyone just to cooperate and work together and put something on.
You were very good at that, for sure.
I'm sure it was probably great for you guys as well to know that there was a relatively responsible person taking the kids away for a couple of hours. But great, we can all sit down and not deal with them for a bit. Yeah. And then finally, what is empathy and why is it so important, particularly now?
Well, the textbook definition of empathy is, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. And it's the only way that we can kind of connect as humans, right? Is to have a shared experience that even if you're not going through it, you have some idea of understanding how that person might be feeling. So there's, as you know, there's the two aspects of empathy, right? There's cognitive and affective. So cognitive empathy is looking at somebody, someone who's upset about something and thinking, I can understand that. I see that they're upset, and I understand that would be very upsetting. And then affective empathy is the action part of it. So are you going to go say to that person, can I help you? So for example, you see a little person crying on the street and you walk past and you think, oh, that poor child's lost and they're very upset. Oh, that's a terrible, terrible thing. And you keep walking. Or do you stop and do you say, hey, little girl or little boy, can I help you? You look like you're upset and you're lost.
Yeah.
Or that classmate who's got no one to sit with at lunch. Ooh, that must be a terrible feeling. Well, do you go over and say to them, do you want to come and sit with me? Can I sit with you? So that's the affective part of empathy, which I think is really important, because it's one thing to understand another person's suffering. It's another thing to be willing to help them with it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't engage in affective empathy because of like social awkwardness or like the worry of how they're going to be perceived or that they'll be rejected. I would much rather be burned 100 times by someone being like, ew, no, get away from me, and have that one person be like, do you remember Nicholas from kindergarten?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll tell that story in a second, but I would much rather be burned 100 times and know that one person I reached out to, that I did make a significant difference, than to not bother trying. But I also understand that putting yourself out there is really uncomfortable for some people. I mean, I don't understand it, but I've heard of it.
Absolutely. So if the affective part of empathy is daunting, and I'm sure it is for some people, the cognitive part still kind of keeps us from doing any harm. Right. Yeah. So
ideally,
if you're not able to sort of lean in to try and make a difference, then at the very least do no harm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think especially now with the world is really divided, and we know that people are more lonely and have more issues with mental health than ever before, whether that's because we've just gotten...
Yeah, particularly right now.
Yeah. Particularly in the COVID situation, but prior to COVID, whether we just got better at recognizing mental health issues, because I think in previous generations there has been the expectation of like, you're just going to have a stiff upper lip and, mental health doesn't exist. And like, what do you mean that as a woman with loads of kids and no other prospects and very limited social expectations that you're not satisfied? Are you bad at being a woman? So... I
think it was a question of character.
Yeah.
Versus a chemical biological condition.
Yeah.
Of not having mental wellness. So
100%.
Yeah, we definitely are a little more woke, thankfully, because I can't imagine.
Yeah. And I think also empathy is the solution to things like xenophobia and homophobia and racism and all this other stuff. Like when the number of people who have had brazen anti-immigration conversations with me living in the UK, and I'm like, hi, and they're like, oh no, you don't count. And I'm like, yeah, but that other person that you are taking issue with is actually not that different from us. Like they might have different cultural values or a different religion, but at the end of the day, like humans are social mammals with pretty similar needs, and you just need to adjust your thinking. Like the way that they view the world isn't wrong, it's just different. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. The basic common denominator is that we all want to give love and we want to be loved. I mean, it's really, even I think some of the most, well, we probably are going down a rabbit hole here, but some people who are causing the most grief in the world, I would argue that at some point along the way, they did not experience the building block of, a secure attachment with their parent and the feeling of being loved unconditionally.
Yeah. As much as I hate to have sympathy for certain people, I think you're right. And that's why my founding philosophy as a teacher is that any child who is in my care has my unconditional love. And I am not ever going to interact with them in a way that jeopardizes that feeling of being supported and valued and seen. And I don't need to like them personally to still demonstrate all of those, because they're children. Yeah.
And actually, one of your fellow countrymen there, Roman Kurznerek, who has the Empathy Museum in London, he once said, the true test of empathy is, can you feel empathy or have empathy for somebody that you do not agree with?
Yeah.
And that's just it, right? It's sort of that bridging the gap, finding common ground and building on that.
Yeah. And I
can
think
be very, very different with the same goal at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think another big part of it is, particularly if you are a person in a privileged position, right? Like I'm obviously white and I'm able-bodied and healthy, and those are both privileges. And I think recognizing that because of my lived experience, I am, even with the best intentions and the most empathy, I'm still going to say and do things that are insensitive and hurtful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where you need to carry yourself as a person who is safe to call out. So, like, I know from my personal experience of being an ally, you know, throughout university, I don't think I had any white friends, was kind of a running joke. But, like, even now, I try my best to be an ally, but I'm still going to say and do things that are hurtful. And I think the only thing you can do if somebody says to you, hey, that thing you did was hurtful or this was upsetting because of whatever. And like even outside of an allyship situation, if a friend with all the same privileges and all the same lived experiences comes to you and goes, hey, that thing you did upset me, you need to be able to detach from your own ego enough to go, oh my goodness, like, okay, how do I adjust the behavior? How do I make sure this doesn't happen again? And to improve, because an apology that's just words and not actions is useless. It's such a waste of oxygen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, giving a person the faith and confidence that they can come to you and say, this is what you're doing that I'm taking issue with, without feeling like there's going to be blowback is huge.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think also...
It's a safe place to land, or a safe place to fall, you know?
100%. And I think also you can air your grievances with somebody in a respectful way. Obviously, there are situations where I think it's ridiculous, like respectability politics, when Black people are like, hey, stop murdering us. You know, it's bizarre to me that has to be framed in a way that's comfortable for white people to listen to, as opposed to just why aren't we equally mad about this? Like,
exactly. And we understand that you have an issue, but you should still take, you know, you shouldn't be taking a knee for the national anthem. And
can you please not raise your voice? Yeah,
exactly. You're becoming hysterical now is essentially that argument.
Yeah, which is just
Ridiculous.
Nonsense. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have just enough time to tell the Nicholas story if you're up for it, and then we'll wrap things up.
Okay, so Nicholas, and that's so funny that you bring this up, because I actually was just talking to David about this the Queen Father.
Yes, the science dad.
The science dad the other day. That so when you were in Montessori school, there was
really young, like kindergarten.
Very young. You were probably only 4.5 years old. There was a new student that came to the school, and his name was Nicholas, and he was from Japan, and he spoke no English whatsoever. His parents were bilingual, and they moved to Canada. His dad was a pharmacist, and so their little boy was starting Montessori school as the non-English speaking child in this,
very small town where I'd say there weren't any other immigrants.
No, not many. Well, but I mean, the kids were all, you guys had already been in school together for a year, so your cohort had kind of all worked out the friendships and all of that stuff. So, very daunting experience and Nicholas was tiny. He was the tiniest little boy.
I remember. So little.
So anyway, one day I was in the pharmacy picking up a prescription, and the dad was kind of looking at me a bit funny, and so I dropped the prescription off, and I went and I did some wandering around, and I guess he must have looked at the prescription, and it was a prescription for you. It was for an inhaler or something like that.
Yeah,
but
something nerdy.
Yes. So I came back to pick up the prescription, and he said to me, "Oh, you're the mother of Nicholas's friend, and Nicholas, the only reason he's going to school right now is because your daughter has taken him under her wing, and stays by his side throughout the day and plays with him at break, and she's made all the difference for him. He feels like he has someone there." That is not just a protector, but also a friend. And it's the only way we get him to go to school.
Aw. That's so cute. I only, sort of vaguely remember that. And I think probably in classic me fashion, I was probably pretty aggressive with the kids who were mean to him.
I'm sure you were.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Callaghan's Questions podcast with special guest, my own mother. Are there any parting words you'd like to leave us with, Mother Dearest?
Oh, geez, there's no pressure there. I love you.
I love you too.
And honestly, to all the curious kids in the world, you're awesome. Just keep being you.